we are, sitting between, some of the most knowledgeable people in the cyber world, and we stand between you and your lunch. So understand that. Let me start with the introduction. So we have with us R Nair. She has over 25 years of experience in the IT industry, and most of it in the cyber world and CISO of many organizations. We have with us Ratolikar, CISO of HDFC Bank, has been the CISO of top banks in India for the last 20 odd years, 25 years plus. We have Shiju Rawther, Dr. Shiju Rawther. Shiju is the IT head of SBI Mutual Fund. Been in the cyber industry for over 20 years now, and he has a doctorate in this field. And we have Mr. Balakrishnan A. My apologies. So he is one of the first security professionals in the country, but then moved to looking after overall IT, to the CTO role, to the CEO role, etc. So has done so many different, worn so many different hats. We also have Mr. MV Sheshadri, very dear friend of mine, and somebody who I consider as an advisor in intelligence-led security. So welcome everyone. And see, for us security practitioners, like Philip mentioned in the previous presentation, this is literally war. And war as a concept has been in existence for a very long time. Humans have been fighting war, nation states have been fighting war. Now, the organizations which fight war for the nation states, that is the defense forces, for them this is, they're quite mature at handling that. And one of the core aspects of handling war is that they use intelligence to make every military decision. And intelligence input is used to make every military decision. Whereas key on the enterprise front, war as a concept is only 20, maybe 25 years old for us. And we are literally taking baby steps on this regard. And I believe this is an absolute low-hanging fruit for us to adopt. So, let me go around the room and get your thoughts on that.
As you recommended, the physical warfare has been on for maybe thousands of years. And here we have 10, 15, 20 years of cyber war experience. So maybe it is also taking a little time to mature to that level. So we should hope that maybe going forward, the learning will be much faster, which may not be, it cannot take thousands of years because we can't take so much time. So it will get faster. At the same time, I would say that the way in which we conduct our operations, even if it's not a war per se, it is indeed based on intelligence that we get through various sources, the digital feeds that we get in, and all the products that operate in this market do take inputs from the that's available in the market. One thing that I would differentiate between physical warfare and cyber warfare is that for us, there are far too many things coming. Far too many to identify whether these are real or these are just ones that are based on some slight input that they can receive. We can even put the Indians also. While I think in physical warfare, these inputs may not be so huge. This is my assumption. I've never worked on that side, so I would not be able to say exactly. But I presume that in a physical world, the informers who get information or any other threat feed that they get will be fewer numbers as compared to what we get. So sifting through millions of feeds that we get into decide which one is a real threat can also be a reason why there's not so much onto it.
Yeah, thank you for a generous introduction. So, see, overall, look at the threat intel market. I think worldwide it was growing at about 6 to 7% in few years back. Am I audible? Now I think with the CAGR of 20%, it's increased. So that shows the importance and adoption of threat intel program across the globe by multiple. Whenever we sort of discuss with the board of even about the cyber security initiative and progress, the important question definitely comes up most of the time is on how we are ahead in information security or cyber security vis-a-vis the global, the peer competition organizations. And the question is also raised on how proactive we are. Okay? So we talk about proactive approach to the cyber security. I think the threat intel forms one of the most important pillars to see that we are consuming the threat intel, the tool techniques, the procedures, the TTPs about the attackers, injures that in overall protective and detective technologies, and try to see that we are catching the early warning signals. And that gives a good comfort to the board of directors, to regulators. So the point I'm trying to make is it has become more or less a hygiene these days to have the threat intel as a program. In most of the situations, we have personally seen that the threat intel IOCs and IOAs have helped us in specific situations. I'm not naming the exact scenarios. So it's definitely part of the strategy, the very important strategy right now. Up till now, probably the industry, at least the BFSI, if I have to represent, we all were into more on the tactical way of managing the threat intel programs, right? But probably now it is becoming more operational. There are a lot of technicalities, more of the TTPs are involved, especially the backdrop of the AIML, general attacks, and when you have the organized crime syndicate. It's a more fragmented cyber crime groups operating. Everyone knows the other one fairly well. So it has become more of an operational one. But probably in the days to come, the threat intel will take shape of more strategic programs in the way of how we can bring in the cognitive abilities, the journey here to make programs smart, more efficient for the C0c0n. Looking at the other side, the table, you have to speak the ROI. But yes, largely the evolution of threat landscape, I think the threat intel program will further become more strategical, become a hygiene, rather become a hygiene actor now. And it will evolve, thereby it becomes a very handy, smart tool for us. Even though with a mobile app, I should be able to find out the details about the attackers, the indicators, compromises, information about the specific actor group, the incident manifesto, etc. This is such kind of will help to program more user friendly, and thereby a lot of inputs can be given in real time to the board of directors, to the regulators, rather than a point in time. That's the way to look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Midhun, for introducing everyone. I want to touch point to a point which you had discussed about the war thousands of years before, which used to happen. But the scenario is totally different now, because at those days, the modus operandi was only identified as three ways. Either it could be through ground military, or through the air base, or through the water base. But now the geography has completely changed. When we see the technology, we don't have any geography itself. So there is a limitless. People can attack you from anywhere. Someone sitting in the next door also they can attack you. So we will never know where and from the mode of operations where it will come from. So the lateral movement can happen from any of the geographic locations. Second, the technology landscape has gone so high. Today, the models of operatives are many. So from either it could be mobile, it could be through web, it could be any sort of actions. Now, having a threat intelligence in place that definitely helps the organizations to get proactive approach in terms of protecting themselves. But definitely the need is, unlike the government bodies who are set up more from the individual perspective, they collaborate globally each other. There is a need in terms of cybersecurity as well. But even though the evolution is very new, a couple of years before only this evolution started, where threat intelligence concept itself, CTA itself has emerged as one of very demanding field. So since that time, all organizations used to protect themselves with different mechanisms. Say, for example, they may put up different technologies to prevent themselves. But then later on, everyone identified this is not the only way we can protect ourselves. So we need some more intelligence also proactively to get it protected. But today, there are very few numbers of players who are there in this field, niche fields. But how do we look into collaborations with the government? Or how the government can help us, we can discuss in this forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Midhun, for a wonderful introduction. And on a military intelligence and cooperating in particular is hardly difficult topic. Business is not like business is not like a military operation. However, on cyber intelligence, cyber threats, analysis and all, today it is a boardroom topic. It is actually top of the mind of all the board members, it is there. Unlike in the past, I have seen in the past actually very difficult to get budget allocation. Those days have gone. That way, there is a maturity among the board level, senior management level, execution level, etc. Number two is intelligence is one of the components. Basically, we need a proper strategy, especially since we are giving services to a large number of retail customers, wherein creation of awareness is also our job. And when we run the business, there are a lot of other challenges. Therefore, cyber security to be handled with respect to that. We can have a war room in the c0c0n side, but at the same time, we also need to look into how we can impact everything. So there must be an impact analysis. It is a continuous, consistent exercise for the business today. A lot of budget has been allocated now in most of the business establishments, especially in financial services. Even after that, the threats are increasing. Today with the AI and all, probably the threat will continue to increase. So therefore, much more awareness to be created among the stakeholders. That is our key job today. And create a wonderful environment. So data and intelligence. Intelligence when we talk about, data when we talk about, it is like sea water. We can't drink that water. We have plenty of water. Yes, in all organizations we have plenty of data, piles of data. But we have to create inference out of it. That is also a key job for us. Thank you.
Okay, I think there's plenty of knowledge that has been spoken of, but talking about warfare, I'm no expert in warfare, but from the little thing that I've read from my history books, I think no war was ever won without intelligence. Taking liberty in front of armed forces, but while forces are very important, I think intelligence played a key role. Right, how we take examples in the warfare of Genghis Khan, Alexander, and closer home, we had one Mahabharata to be recited. I think intelligence played a very key role. The difference between those days and our war currently we face is the cyber part, right? Two aspects. One, obviously, those days we knew who the enemy was. Today we don't know who the enemy was. Is rather, right? So attribution takes away brings in the complexity in cyber warfare. Second is, we have not trained our people to study intelligence. For example, one of key attack vector on intelligence, state intelligence, was an attack vector called Salt Typhoon. I don't know if anybody here is aware of the attack called Salt Typhoon. Just happened 2 months back in the US. It attacked the US intelligence agencies directly. No middleman, nobody else. We have not taught people how to protect that, not taught people how to detect primarily. The response is a very long show always. Not even at a government level, even at a private sector or at an academic level, we have not been teaching people to study, read, analyze intelligence. If you take a stock, operation stock for example, we get alerts from SIM and EDR and all that. How many people in our industry actually know how to triage an alert? Very few, very few. So I think our challenges are to access intelligence and how we use intelligence. My 2 bits.
Thank you. Wonderful answers from everyone. So Maya, you mentioned that you get too much of intelligence. So I agree that there are millions of threats out in the wild, but only a very small percentage of that would be posing a risk to your organization, and then even a smaller subset of that will eventually convert into an attack. Now, how do you distinguish between that what is a threat and what poses a risk to you? So, what are some of the best practices that you have rolled out during your stint at different organizations?
Good question. Because we are usually inundated in such feeds that we get in. And a lot of times we don't know what we should be acting upon first, what should be prioritized. So here, while the threat is there for everybody, for every organization, maybe the same amount of threat, maybe depending on the domain in which we operate, maybe some of them will have more, some of them will have less. But assuming that all of us are living in the same environment, with the same amount of threats, what the c0c0n needs to understand is, what's the business that they are in? If somebody were to look to reach you, to attack you, what is their fit for them to attack? Something which a healthcare industry will have is different from what maybe a fintech will have, different from what maybe an education institution will have. All of them offer different things to the attacker. So the c0c0n needs to understand the business well. The c0c0n needs to understand their clients and the clients' well, so that they know what exactly they are protecting and why are they protecting, to what extent they should be protecting it. So this internal knowledge is extremely necessary. And I don't think a tool or a vendor or a consultant will be able to give you this. This you have to do yourself along with your team. And identify which are those telltale signs that you need to pick up and act upon.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no magic wand for all this. So, on the same topic, so once a risk is identified, mitigation of that will involve probably technology changes, process changes, hiring of people, etc. Now, this obviously requires, in most cases, board approval and all. Now, how do you quantify this or give a visual of the risk that you are facing, the kinetic risk that you are facing as an organization, and present it to the board so that they approve of these changes that are required to mitigate? I mean, what is your best practice and advice to the audience here?
See, on cybersecurity front, the board expects simplicity. Right? Unnecessarily complicated things with inundation or jargon of the words like vulnerabilities and threat landscape, multiple other jargons. What the board members want to know is the impact. Okay? They understand the language of risk. So as long as a specific vulnerability or a risk is translated into an impact, backed by data points, and come to later on, backed by data points, the board will understand the risk very well. But at least in the DFSR, the board is quite sensitized thanks to the regulator. So that's one part. Second part, when we talk about the specific threat, they also know is about what comprehensive understanding about the risk, which means, I'll give you a simple example of vulnerability. Today, on average, there is a huge of vulnerability when there are a VAPT scam. Right? At most, large organization it will throw vulnerability in the range of 3,000 to maybe 20,000. Okay? But not every vulnerability is important to be implemented. Okay? So what is required is how do you really contextualize the mitigation, the vulnerability and the mitigation efforts. You take the basis of compensating control and you then arrive at the critical vulnerabilities. Okay? That is one part of, little bit of part of the risk quantification. We use EPSs for multiple other areas, use sometimes the security rating agencies, etc. The cyber risk quantification is also extremely important, where people are today in the process of creating a mesh architecture, whereby every solutions will talk to each other and will sort of create a mesh. They are making your effectiveness of compensatory control more efficient and effective. The other expectations is whenever any residual risk, right, which you are not remediating, is kept open for the board member to sort of take objective approvals, they would like to know your effectiveness of the compensatory control. So you may deploy the red teaming to see that how effective our compensatory controls are, and we are not living in a false sense of comfort that I have this 10 compensatory controls which are, let us not remediate the vulnerability or remediate after 3 to 6 months. So the more quantification and the scientific methodology in managing risk is something board is. So we are able to, if we are able to do 3 things. Number 1, prioritize the vulnerability, contextualize the vulnerability. And when I am saying vulnerability means you can assume risk. Contextualize it, right? Review the compensatory control effectiveness by periodically carrying out a lot of internal simulations or breach attack simulations, etc., etc. And use the help of the external rating agencies as well. You know, that's how you create a dashboard around a specific posture of a risk, right? So that this risk is something which has to be extremely mitigated. And this risk can be taken because we have done a sufficient investment of the radar. I think that's broadly the way to do it.
Thank you. And I think the key there is the proactiveness, right? You know, doing all this in a proactive manner. And talking about that, so being proactive versus reactive. So we as security practitioners at a 10,000 feet level, our purpose of existence is to prevent a successful cyber attack from going through at a 10,000 feet level. Now, so there are different forms of intelligence which gives you proactive intelligence, intelligence that can be used to prevent an attack from going through, and there are reactive intelligence inputs like say brand monitoring or even dark web monitoring, etc. I mean, except for maybe phishing and those kind of attacks, everything else in that area is pretty much reactive. You know, you get to know that you have been breached or something has gone through a little bit before it comes on the newspapers. Now, Shiju, what are your thoughts on moving away from a reactive kind of a mode to a proactive kind of a mode? And some of the best practices in that.
So I think, first of all, there is a very big disconnect in terms of in the cybersecurity world, what the intelligence means. There are different interpretations for the different professionals. First of all, the goal has to be the same for technology as well as the cybersecurity team both. Because there are two different teams that works in this domain. So cybersecurity definitely wants to bring in the CTI, but technology team doesn't understand what the CTI, how does it bring in the difference in all over the security postures of preventing any sort of lateral attacks. So that's the one thing I think which has to be put up in place. First of all, the internal organizational goal has to be set up in place to be more proactive, so that everyone is on the same page. How to configure, how to make it operationalized. Because today, a lot of threat incidents we get each and every day. Now, each IOCs or each IOEs will not be really impactful in terms of when you implement it. But if you miss one, that's the only case which will bring you down. So definitely it's a collaboratively efforts which both the teams has to take. And more practice, definitely as Samir said, vulnerabilities and VLPTs which you have to look into it, because end of the day what your golden assets are, you need to know. And how does these IOCs will impact, or how these IOCs will help you to prevent, you should know. So that's one of the key aspects to put it up the organization level of goal to become more proactive. Reactive, definitely I'm saying till this time we used to do reactive, but most of the cases when you look into the failure cases, they are always being called as reactive. There is no real terminology, reactive or proactive. When we fail that things, we say that it's a reactive. So moreover, we have to be on the same goal.
Thank you. So my father used to work for an intelligence agency, and according to him, intelligence gives you perspective, and the lack of intelligence will give you what? Perception, which is the left, right? What is left hand? So, let me ask you this. See, you are not a security practitioner per se, but then you get inputs from the security practitioners in the organization on a daily basis. So, how do you distinguish between an input that is coming in is an actual perspective versus whether it's a perception? How do you distinguish that?
Okay, let's see also these wonderful two words, perception. Perception also requires an intelligence, because you need to consume that what it is. But it has a variability. It depends on the person to person, what sort of thought process he has. That is not how the perception develops. Whereas perspective is actually, it is more scientific. It is actually derived from a lot of information or processed information. Today, thanks to the technology, we are getting lot of patterns, lot of things and coming out, and there are ways and means to interpret that. So your perception may be better if it's actually over a period of time, it is actually getting improved. Not that we are always making a correct decision and all, because a lot of false positives, a lot of other things are coming in. The key important thing today is we have certain things which are known. For known threats, we have solutions. There are perceived threats that also can be addressed. But the unfortunate part is majority of the threats are unknown. And it is coming out from the knee-jerk reaction of various implementations. That is also, because we are in the business. I am also responsible for certain things to be implemented on time and give it to the customers, etc. Wherein now we have to work on that. That is, okay, am I taking a knee-jerk reaction so that for one day, whether if I can close something and do it, this was the case. Now today, thanks to the regulation and the other things, and also awareness at the board level, even at lower level vulnerability, we have a red signal, you should not go. And let us learn that, because that depth of the vulnerability we don't know, whether it is low, medium or high, or in an integrated environment, how it can actually impact. So this is something thanks to the entire environment and awareness in the environment management. As he said, it is not a c0c0n responsibility or IT responsibility. It is an organization-wide goal to protect our information system, protect our customers' assets, protect our customers' data. This is our fundamental goal. therefore, that awareness actually giving us courage to give better interpretation on things. And you know, we are competing in the market. The marketplace, if you can release something one day before, then you have an early bird advantage. So we are all fighting for it. In that context, where in the past, actually, even I had done that. Okay, already, let us move on. This is something now stopped. This is because of various awareness created among the stakeholders on this. So the data we are acquiring from internal and also from the environment, in the socio-economic paradigm, we are getting a lot of information. And now we are also doing a lot of gap analysis on what we are doing. Because third party, we don't have internal capability to do that. And we are continuously improving. So, to specifically answer, one is actually creating help for the other, creating perspective, perception also thinking.
Thank you. So, during many of our previous interactions, you have highlighted the importance of tracking the threat actors who are targeting you, identifying their PTPs, and then take remedial measures. I would actually like to hear from you the evolution of this best practice. I mean, this is something that I've seen as like the best practice in the industry today. Like keep an absolute track of who is really after you. Whether it be the top 5 threat actors who are after you or the top 10 threat actors, then targeting. So I want to hear that evolution, how you made this as a best practice and share some experience around this.
We have lunch to do.
We have enough time, I guess.
Do you have a simpler question? Okay, I'll try my best to fit it in 2 minutes. One is we need access to good intel, and we need access to multiple sources. Okay, there are free sources on the open source. There are government sources, very effective. There are expensive private sources that you offer, right? And if somebody wants to buy, it's a good time to buy because of Black Friday sales. Should I use your lifetime membership for $5 on every Black Friday? I think this year they're linked. You can make a lot of money. So one is access to good threat intel. Second is access to a good team that can think. Thinking is a problem in our industry, or perspectives. Getting perspectives has been a big challenge. But the way we did it at NSC is obviously we had a dedicated team solely to study the intel, the actors and the TTPs. They took a lot of time to train them. I think it took almost 2 years to get a semblance of a decent threat intel that was applicable to us. Context was important. Most threat intel products don't provide context. You just dump biosics and figure out whatever you want. So you give about 4 lakh IPs at any given point of time. RFPs with 4 lakh IPs to deal with malicious IPs. Nobody, I don't think anybody can will block 4 lakh IPs or can block 4 lakh IPs. Most known firewalls through the EDL list can only block 1.5 lakh. There are very few systems that can block 4 lakh IPs, right? So trying to get center of that, see what we can block. Again, it's a human talent. I haven't seen any automation around that. The other thing that we also tried to do was something called active defense. Not just block IOCs how much we can and then hope that nothing comes through, 24 touch points or nobody clicks on the link or downloads a file. But how do I put it? So we would replay that in various of our other simulations internally. We still have a very good beach assessment solution which will run the IOCs that we think are contextual to India, capital markets, NSC on the last solution we had. The thing was, we took those IOCs and also counted into our SI. Sorry, not SI. SI couldn't handle it. So we had an elastic solution that we used to run and do hunting. So hunting usually normally the hunting process is to take an alert, whatever has happened, it's towards cost position, try and then see if there is any collateral impact on the environment. Here we operate the same logic on the IOCs. All the domains IPs and patches that we got. We had decent samples, but I still think it's a work in progress. I could take a day on talking how we are doing this, but in interest of time and so on.
So basically you would use threat hunting to identify, fingerprints of certain threat actors and identify who those threat actors targeting you are. Then use again intelligence. So the first part is also use intelligence on one hand to identify the fingerprints itself. Then you use intelligence to identify the TTPs used by those threat actors. Then, give it to, I guess you must be giving it to a team or someone who will replicate those threat actor capability and see how they can come in.
Use that for that. There are nuances. The thing is, if a threat actor is using an Azure platform, using a subdomain that they have got, by luck, there's nothing much you can do. Right? You can't do anything from a defense point of view. Or if you're doing a very hyperactive domain generating algorithms, I think there's nothing much you can do, right? At best you can hope that whatever controls you have put in are working fine. Just to monitor that very well, that if there is there's a hit or there is continuous hit or there is traffic, you are able to mitigate that. So there are a lot of nuances, and that's why I said I'll take a lot of time in explaining how you went up doing this. The challenge again there is to train the next set of people. That's where we have to focus on as a country or as an industry.
Yeah, thank you. So, any questions from the audience on this topic? Okay, we are standing between lunch and this. Thank you so much for this wonderful panel discussion. Hope all of you enjoyed.